September 12th, 2024. 700 kilometers above Earth, a figure emerges from a spacecraft into the void of space. Not a government astronaut, not a career space explorer, but a high school dropout who once slept in his parents' basement, desperately trying to keep his failing business alive. This is the story of Jaredisaacman, a man who transformed teenage desperation into a multi-billion-dollar empire and then risked it all to reach for the stars. But his journey to space began in the most unlikely place, a New Jersey basement with nothing but a telephone and a dream. 1983, Far Hills, New Jersey. Jaredisaacman was born into a middle-class family with no particular wealth or connections. His father was a salesman. His mother worked in healthcare. By all accounts, he seemed destined for an ordinary life. But from an early age, Isaacman was anything but ordinary. While other kids played video games, he became obsessed with understanding how they worked, taking apart computers, rebuilding them, teaching himself to code. But traditional education never clicked for Jared. He struggled in school, not from lack of intelligence, but from a mind that moved too fast, that saw possibilities where others saw only textbooks and tests. At 16 years old, Jaredisaacman made a decision that horrified his parents and shocked his teachers. He dropped out of high school. But Isaacman had a plan. He had noticed something that the financial world was struggling with. Businesses needed better ways to process credit card payments. The technology existed, but it was clunky, expensive, and complicated. In 1999, at just 16 years old, working from his parents' basement, Isaacman founded United Bank Card. He had no degree, no business experience, no funding, just a telephone, a computer, and the audacity to believe he could solve a problem that was plaguing thousands of businesses. Those early days were brutal. Isaacman cold-called businesses hour after hour, day after day, facing rejection after rejection. He slept little. He ate less. Some nights, he wondered if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. His parents watched with a mixture of concern and quiet faith as their teenage son turned their basement into a makeshift office, surrounded by computer equipment they didn't understand, chasing a dream they couldn't fully comprehend. The late 1990s and early 2000s were a crucible for Isaacman. United Bank Card was growing, but slowly. Every client was a battle. Every sale required him to prove himself over and over again, a teenager competing against established corporations with decades of experience. But Isaacman had something they didn't: hunger, and an almost supernatural ability to understand what businesses actually needed. While working 16-hour days building his company, Isaacman found an escape that would later define his entire life: flying. In 2004, at age 21, he began taking flying lessons. The sky became his sanctuary, a place where the stress of entrepreneurship dissolved into the freedom of flight. And then came the pivot that would change everything. In 2005, Isaacman recognized that his company needed to evolve. He rebranded United Bank Card as Harbor Touch, focusing on providing payment processing systems specifically designed for restaurants and hospitality businesses, a massively underserved market. But here's where Isaacman's genius truly emerged. Instead of just processing payments, he offered businesses point-of-sale systems completely free of charge. Competitors thought he was insane. How could he make money giving away hardware? Isaacman understood something they didn't. He made his profit on the transaction fees. By eliminating the upfront cost, the biggest barrier for small businesses, he could acquire customers at a pace his competitors couldn't match. It worked brilliantly. By 2011, HarborTouch was processing billions of dollars in transactions. Isaacman, still in his 20s, had built a legitimate empire, but he wasn't satisfied with just business success. With financial success secured, Isaacman began pursuing his other passions with the same intensity he'd brought to business. He became an accomplished aviator, not just flying planes, but mastering complex military aircraft. He set a world record, circumnavigating the globe in a light jet in just 61 hours, raising money for charity along the way. In 2020, Isaacman orchestrated another brilliant business move. He merged HarborTouch with Shift4 Payments, taking the company public. The result? A payment processing giant worth billions of dollars. Isaacman, at just 37 years old, had a personal net worth exceeding $2 billion. For most people, this would be the end of the story. The high school dropout had become a billionaire. Success achieved, story complete. But for Jaredisaacman, this was merely the beginning of his most audacious chapter. Isaacman looked at the emerging commercial space industry and saw the same thing he'd seen in payment processing decades earlier: possibility where others saw impossibility. In 2021, he funded and commanded Inspiration4, the first all-civilian mission to orbit Earth. He didn't just buy a seat on someone else's mission, he trained like an astronaut, he led like a commander, and he used the mission to raise over $200 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. But that was just the warm-up. In 2022, Isaacman announced the Polaris program, a series of private SpaceX missions designed to push the boundaries of commercial spaceflight. And on September 12, 2024, during the Polaris Dawn mission, Jaredisaacman became the first private citizen to perform a spacewalk. That moment, floating in the vacuum of space, tethered to a Dragon capsule, represented the culmination of everything Isaacman had become: entrepreneur, aviator, explorer, leader. So what can we learn from the journey of Jaredisaacman? First, that credentials don't define capability. Isaacman never graduated high school, yet he built a multi-billion-dollar company and commanded missions to space. He proved that passion, intelligence, and relentless work ethic can overcome any lack of traditional qualifications. Second, that success requires calculated risk. At 16, Isaacman risked his future on an untested business idea. At 38, he risked his life stepping into the void of space. Each risk was calculated, prepared for, but still required immense courage. Third, that once you achieve success, the question becomes, what will you do with it? Isaacman didn't retire to a beach somewhere. He didn't rest on his achievements. He used his resources to push humanity forward, raising money for children's hospitals, advancing space technology, inspiring millions. Perhaps most importantly, Isaacman's story reminds us that the American dream isn't dead. It's just evolved. It no longer looks like a factory job and a pension. It looks like a teenager in a basement, teaching himself skills that didn't exist a generation before, solving problems in ways that established industries can't imagine. Today, Jaredisaacman continues to lead Shift4 Payments while pursuing increasingly ambitious space missions through the Polaris program. He's a husband, a father, and a man who has never stopped reaching for the next seemingly impossible goal. From a New Jersey basement to the depths of space, from high school dropout to billionaire commander, Jaredisaacman's journey proves that the distance between where you start and where you can go is limited only by your vision, your determination, and your willingness to embrace the unknown. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary destinations begin with the simplest decision: to believe that you can. His story shows that no dream is too far when you're willing to work hard and never give up. From humble beginnings to reaching space, his journey reminds us that determination can truly take you anywhere. What are your thoughts about his life struggle? Let us know in the comments below. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.